In 2009, a small group of agency professionals in Buffalo County decided to take on a small project of restoring a small remnant prairie, known as dry bluff prairies or as goat prairies. We started by clearing the site with brush and eventually did some burning, all things that you'll learn about in this video. This was the first time I really heard about dry bluff prairies, even though I'd lived in Buffalo County for 20 years by that time. Dry bluff prairies are a collection of a very rare ecosystem, globally rare in fact, with thousands of species of plants and animals and vertebrates that are not found in any other place. Several experts have mentioned to us or told us that the dry bluff prairies, without some human intervention and restoration, will disappear from the landscape in 20 years or less. In 2010, we received a small grant from the Wisconsin Environmental Education Board, which allowed us to hire an intern to do some work on the dry bluff prairies and to really get this project started with a group of landowners, which now we have about 5 that have done some restoration on the prairies. In 2015, we obtained another small grant from the Wisconsin Environmental Education Board, which allowed us, number 1, to do this video, and number 2, to start an inventory with the landowners in Buffalo County that have interest, and also to be able to evaluate their sites for how many species are still remaining on the remnants, how easy the remnant will be to expand, and other factors which allow us to rate which projects we should go to next. Please go to our website to find out more about the Dry Bluff Prairie Restoration Project in Buffalo County. The website is stated on your screen and will also be at the end of this video. I truly hope that you enjoy learning about dry bluff prairies as much as I have.
In Wisconsin, we used to have over 2 million acres of prairie. Now we have less than 8,000.
Really, the only places these prairies remain are on places that are too steep to plow or too wet to plow. So it would be hill prairies or bluff prairies. And Buffalo County actually contains approximately 25% of the remaining dry prairie in Wisconsin.
Well, right now we're facing the Mississippi River, so this is a great example of a steep slope facing the Mississippi River. South and west facing are typically where we find prairies. That's very dry, gets a lot of sun. So the plants and the soil types that are here are meant for these conditions.
Growing up in the Driftless area in prime farm country, we didn't have places like this. It's so unique. It's a unique piece of property. Plants that we find here, you don't find anywhere else. I've heard comments that you don't find these anywhere else in the world, especially in the United States, unique to the Driftless area.
They host a whole suite of unique and rare species that are threatened, and we need grassland habitats like a bluff prairie to maintain these species.
These prairies largely contain, I would say, about 80 to 100 plant species, almost restricted to these sites. So these are plant species you're not going to find in just a road ditch here or there or that sort of thing. It is estimated there are as many as 2,000 remnant-dependent invertebrates found on these sites.
These are remnant prairies, which means that they have been here forever, at least post-glacial. And so they, you know, the plants that are under our feet have seen a lot of people, a lot of landowners. They've seen deer, they've seen a lot of wildlife, and they still remain. So that's why these remnants are really important to open up and maintain.
They provide a lot of habitat for wildlife that otherwise are kind of underrepresented in our landscape. They provide habitat for grassland birds like vesper sparrows, meadowlarks, upland sandpipers. They also provide excellent habitat for badgers, which is our state mammal. And they play host to a whole suite of species in the plant community that are also quite rare, like prairie dropseed or prairie bush clover, dotted blazing star, that sort of thing.
Goat prairie habitat is important to golden eagles for a couple of reasons. One, the angle of the slope that we have here, that's going to create some lift. That's going to create orographic lift. And so when the wind hits that, that adjusts up and creates a lift for the birds to ride on. That's a free ride, and so they'll take advantage of that. But I think more importantly, they utilize this goat prairie habitat for prey acquisition. If they're going after a rabbit or a squirrel or a wild turkey that's out in the middle of one of these prairies, they can fly along the back side of the bluff undetected, come up and over at the last minute. If there's a wild turkey out in the middle of this goat prairie behind me, they have a pretty good chance of being able to glide down there and catch that turkey before it has a chance to reach cover.
Prairies like these bluff prairies overlooking the Mississippi are culturally and historically very important. And so visually, when you come into a city like this along the Mississippi, these bluff prairies are some of the first things that you see. For a lot of people, what gets them excited about them is the aesthetic value.
I try to go out here once a week during the growing season, and what's fun is it's like a treasure hunt. You never know what new plant or new insect or new bird you're going to find on the prairie.
There's plants that are only in these bluffland prairies that aren't anywhere else in the world, and they deserve. And there's animals too that live off those same plants and stuff like that, and they deserve their chance. No sense wiping them out.
Until you're up here actually looking around, you don't realize the kind of habitat and the things that are growing here and the beauty of very small items. Right now, we're very excited about possibly having a peregrine falcon nesting. We have a box that's been tagged onto one of the cliffs. This year, it looks really good for possible nesting and incubation.
I had realized that hill prairies existed. I don't think I realized that there was work to be done to keep them viable. You cut brush and you burn things, and the habitat looks beautiful, and I love beautiful flowers, and Dale likes cutting and burning, and so we got started the next spring.
That was my childhood. I didn't appreciate the land then. I had to chase the cows up and probably most of the time go up and get them and bring them down, and if you've walked the Dugway, it's a good hike and it's pretty straight up. So I don't think I appreciated it until I left home and returned. Signed up the land with the Conservancy, and it's protected, which is really a good feeling. I think it's a very unique property. I think the community in Nelson feels like it's their hills. And so we're trying to do what we can with various grant monies and our own sweat labor to improve it and to make it a very attractive piece of property. And so in that is my dream.
A number of the bluff prairies in Wisconsin, and including this property, are protected with a conservation easement, which protects it from development, but also protects it in perpetuity. And so that's really important to both the community and to the landowners, that this is going to be here forever in some variation of what we see today.
Very little is on public land. So it's really going to come down to working with private landowners, trying to get folks to do management on their properties and that sort of thing. And whatever survives beyond 30 years from now is going to be sites that are managed.
Going to a landowner, for example, and saying, we'd like to restore that habitat for timber rattlesnakes or skinks, or you name a variety of wildflowers inhabit these, they're probably going to one, what's a skink, and no, it's a rattlesnake. But if they understand a golden eagle is utilizing that habitat, golden eagles are what we call charismatic megafauna. They're big, they're bold, they're beautiful, they're cool. If they're a bird that can go after a wild turkey, wow, that's pretty cool. You might get the landowner's interest in restoring some of that habitat just for those other critters that are going to benefit from restoring it for a golden eagle.
When they're landowners, they have a strong tie to the history and the community of the area that they're in. And when they're preserving and restoring bluff prairies on their properties, they're really helping to return the land into its natural historic state, which for a lot of people has a lot of meaning to them.
When I started this, it was maybe a sense of obligation. I feel like since I get so much from the environment, I should give back to it. But what's really amazing is how good it feels, like to come out here and to look and to see all these plants that are here because I'm pulling a few weeds and cutting a little brush. And yeah, people would be amazed what they can find and enjoy on their own land.
Of course, prairies are disturbance-dependent ecosystems, so they need fire basically, and grazing would be the other possible tool that maintained them in the past. We're bringing fire back to them. Grazing is the one thing that I think is a tool that's still being underutilized for bluff prairie management.
Most of the species that you find, the grass and forb species that you find associated with the bluff prairies, are in some way, shape, or form fire dependent. And so if you don't get fire on the landscape, you're going to lose a lot of those species, and the diversity of, overall, the diversity of the bluff prairie will decline. And then you'll also lose the benefits of the assorted animal species that you see as well.
With the bluff prairies, I would say goats are probably one of the best tools out there. They are adapted to real steep terrain. Doing manual work on a bluff prairie, cutting, chainsaw work, herbicide, it's really expensive and really slow just because of the topography. So goats are a management tool that I think are going to become pretty big into the future for managing bluff prairies.
They're not under threat due to them being great corn and bean soils. They're under threat due to natural plant succession. So, but we have a unique opportunity to restore native prairies that have their full intact communities.
They're a lost product in our culture. There are so few left. I'm told that this is one of the better remnant areas that exists.
Prairies are really part of our history, part of our culture, a link to the past, and a potential resource for the future. They're part of our history and they're part of our culture because they produce this rich agricultural soil that we are able to take advantage of today to feed the country. They're a link to the past because prairies are where we came from. That's what gave us these rich soils. And they're a potential resource for the future. With all the species that are found on these sites, 80 to 100 plants, as many as 2,000 remnant-dependent invertebrates, and without active management in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to lose most of what we have left.
Just because it's something that needs to be preserved, and they should understand that there isn't very much of this in the world at all, and we're in a unique area of the state of Wisconsin where we've got some of this left, and if we let it go, it's gone.